The movie opens with a narration explaining how, centuries ago, humanity exhausted the planet's resources, resulting in chaos and war. After that, a team of scientists took it upon themselves to solve the problem. They succeeded in genetically engineering a white orchid whose extract was used as a renewable energy source for modern civilization. Balance was restored, but it didn't solve the world's greatest challenge, human nature. People were still divided into classes, clans, and nations based on their differences. In response, scientists came up with a radical solution known as the transformation. At the age of 16, everyone undergoes an operation that transforms them into the most beautiful and perfect version of themselves, known as pretties. Those who have not transformed are called uglies and live in dilapidated dormitories far from major cities. In the next scene, we meet Tally Youngblood, a 15-year-old girl who is eagerly awaiting her surgery. She sneaks out later at night with her best friend, Paris, to watch the city where the pretties are partying. Tally feels impatient, as she still has 3 months to wait for her operation, while Paris is scheduled to be transformed tomorrow. She asks him not to change after the surgery, and he assures her that he won't. We also see matching scars on their hands, and Tally asks Paris to keep his scar even after the surgery, to which he agrees. The two then agree to meet on the bridge separating the city in a month, so Paris can tell her what life is like on the other side. The next morning, a graduation ceremony is held for those turning 16 that day. The chief overseer, Dr. Cable, addresses the kids and announces that the procedure will make them perfect, both inside and out. They'll be free from discrimination based on the way they look. She then summons the future pretties, and Tally reminds her best friend Paris of their meeting under the bridge in a month, and he promises to be there. Upon returning to her room, Tally misses her best friend deeply and reflects on the time when they first met. Their parents dropped them off at the facility, and Tally was insecure about her squinting eyes, while Paris was worried about his crooked nose. As a result, they gave each other the nicknames Squint and Big Nose, and developed a close bond over time. They also intentionally cut their palms and made a scar as a pact of their friendship. In the following days, Tally sends several messages to check on Paris, but he doesn't respond to any of them. Finally, a month later, she sneaks out her window and heads to the bridge to meet her best friend. But, to her disappointment, he doesn't appear at all. Tally worries about what happened to him, so she decides to cross the bridge and enter the city. Shortly after, she arrives outside a party where several people are throwing masks. Tally picks up one of them, which instantly makes her beautiful. She enters the party and notices many pretties having the time of their lives. Soon, Tally comes across Paris, who now looks much more attractive than before. However, he doesn't recognize her, so she takes off the mask, and her appearance returns to normal. She questions why he didn't come to the bridge, but Paris strangely doesn't seem excited to see her and says she shouldn't be there. To add, she notices his hand and sees that his scar has been erased as well. Paris explains that he realized he didn't want the scar anymore. Just then, their conversation is interrupted when the authorities detect the presence of an ugly in the city. Tally then swiftly flees the scene and grabs a jumping vest along the way. When she's about to be caught, she jumps from a skyscraper, but the special vest saves her, and she manages to reach the bridge. However, Tally is still being pursued by the officials' plane, and just as she is about to be apprehended, a girl named Shay appears to her aid. She pulls Tally onto her flying hoverboard, and the two of them take off together. They manage to dodge the plane and soon arrive at an isolated place. The two then introduce themselves and discover that they both enjoy breaking the rules. They also find out that they are both turning 16 on the same day. In the following days, the girls form a strong bond, and Shay teaches her how to use the flying hoverboard. She also gives Tally a secret book to read that describes what the world was like before all the chaos. Meanwhile, Tally demonstrates to Shay how to exploit system flaws, such as using her ring to obtain food or escape her dormitory at night. The girls find it very exciting, so they sneak out through the window and engage in mischievous activities every night. The scene then cuts to 2 months later, just before the day of their big surgery. Tally expresses her excitement for the next day, but Shay suddenly admits that she doesn't want to undergo the surgery. Upon hearing this, Tally claims that getting older and wrinkled contradicts everything they have been taught, but Shay believes it's okay to age naturally. She then tells her about the Smoke, a rebel group that fled the city after rejecting cosmetic surgeries and now lives in the deserted forests. Tally dismisses it as a myth, but Shay insists it is real and invites her to meet in an hour. Later, the two meet by a river and leave their rings behind so they won't be detected. The girls soon arrive at a ruined city, far from the major city, where Shay starts a bonfire with flint and steel. She then reveals that she's summoning David, who is the leader of the Smoke. Hearing this, Tally panics and explains that if they get caught and their surgeries are cancelled, they'll be completely alone. But Shay explains that in the Smoke, nobody judges others by their appearance, and it's about who they are on the inside. Following this, Shay invites Tally to join her so that they can both be free, but the latter responds that she doesn't want to be free, but rather perfect. This disappoints Shay, but she still gives Tally a sheet of paper with directions on how to find her if she changes her mind. As another bonfire lights up in the distance, Shay realizes that David is nearby. The girls then say their goodbyes, and Tally tearfully watches as her friend leaves. The next morning, Tally is ready to become perfect, but to her dismay, she is brought to see Dr. Cable instead of the operating room. Cable then informs her that Shay is missing and might have been brainwashed by a man named David, who manipulates others into joining his group. She also mentions that David detains people against their will and that Shay's life could be in danger. Cable questions Tally about her friend's disappearance, and the girl denies knowing anything, but a lie detector nearby shows that she is lying. This annoys Cable, and she announces that Tally's surgery is postponed until she decides to cooperate. That night, Tally receives an unexpected visit from Paris. She is thrilled to see him and shares everything that has been going on with her. Paris is intrigued by the information and advises her to cooperate with Dr. Cable so they can be together in the city. He also apologizes for his previous behavior and explains that, after the surgery, things aren't the same anymore. The next day, Tally decides to help Cable and tells her everything she knows about Shay's whereabouts. In response, Cable informs her that David is developing a weapon that will destroy the city and their way of life. She then assigns Tally the mission of infiltrating the Smoke and finding the weapon before it is too late. She also gives Tally a necklace and instructs her to activate it to send a signal when she finds the weapon. The girl is hesitant to accept the mission, but after learning that her friend might be in danger, she eventually agrees. Following this, Tally uses the instructions that Shay gave her before leaving and begins her journey. She jumps on a roller coaster that takes her to train tracks, where she must climb a large wall.
Find the wall and weigh the face.
After walking for days, she eventually arrives at a field of white orchids, which is the final destination according to the instructions. She decides to rest in the field and soon falls asleep. Elsewhere, Cable meets with Paris and thanks him for convincing Tally to help. She asks him how it felt to see her, and he admits that seeing her stirred feelings he hadn't experienced since his surgery. Hearing this, Cable tells him about a new procedure that promises true mental clarity and enhances physical attributes. The boy immediately agrees to go through with it and heads to the transformation chamber, starting the procedure. In another scene, Tally awakens gasping for air, surrounded by fire. She is about to pass out when a mysterious man saves her. Tally asks who he is, and he introduces himself as David. He then goes through her belongings, discovers a tracker hidden in her board, and throws it away. He also scans her body but doesn't find anything suspicious. Meanwhile, when Cable learns that the tracker has been removed from the board, she sends 2 special agents to search a 10-kilometer radius. Afterward, David takes Tally to an outpost, explaining that they don't take newcomers to the Smoke right away. It turns out that Shay is there too, and the girls excitedly hug each other. However, a guy named Croy expresses his suspicions to David, questioning how a single girl could have gotten here on her own. At night, Shay asks Tally who gave her the necklace, but the latter lies, claiming it was from Paris. Tally then says that her life is in danger and persuades her to return to the city. But this only enrages Shay, as she feels her friend came all the way not to join the Smoke but to change her mind. Therefore, she asks her to meet these people and give them a chance before drawing any conclusions. The next day, Tally discovers that the smoke members are attempting to destroy the orchids, which confuses her because they are a renewable source of energy. However, David explains that orchids are actually toxic and are turning the planet into a wasteland. He invites Tally to come with them to see the truth. The group then boards an old flying machine. According to them, they fly over the area, where they see the fields and forests ravaged by orchids. Upon their arrival, Shay sets the plants on fire. But then, moments later, Croy detects enemy movement in the area. This forces David to descend rapidly, and Shay ends up falling off the helicopter. Seeing this, Tally hastily climbs down the helicopter using a rope to save her friend. She finds Shay among the flames and rescues her, but soon notices a figure running toward them. Terrified, the girls manage to grab hold of a rope thrown down from the helicopter, and David finally pulls them out of danger. After the chaos subsides, Croy questions how they were found by the scouts right after Tally's arrival. He finds it highly suspicious because the scouts had never been this far before. But Shay defends her friend, and David also points out how Tally jumped into the flames to save one of them. He claims that no one with ulterior motives would risk their life in the same way she did. The next day, the group eventually arrives at the smoke settlement, where they grow their own food and collaborate. It turns out they do not use money but rather rely on sharing and bartering. Tally begins searching for the secret weapon but quickly realizes that the smoke people do not require guns or bombs to survive. Over the next few days, she begins working with them and gradually gains their trust. She also forms a close bond with David, and the two begin to develop feelings for each other. One day, while the two are alone, Tally asks David about the supposed weapon with which he plans to annihilate the city. Upon hearing this, David gets irritated and asks her to follow him. He then takes her to a cabin and introduces her to his parents, AZ and Maddie. Tally is fascinated by David's resemblance to his parents since this doesn't happen in the city. She also discovers that the book she received from Shay was written by AZ. Later, the family explains that before coming here, they worked as doctors in the city. Surprisingly, the surgery isn't as safe as they thought. Many people die each year, but the authorities keep it quiet. After investigating the causes of death, AZ discovered a pattern of brain lesions in the patients. These lesions numb people's minds, impairing their ability to think clearly and giving them a false sense of happiness. Eventually, they realized that these lesions were not a side effect of the surgery but its main purpose, so the government could control people as they wished. Maddie then reveals that she and Dr. Cable were once friends, and they were both operated on at the same time. Because of the nature of their work, they were invited into the inner circle and given a cure that restored their cognitive abilities. But after that, AZ and Maddie left the city and began living in isolation. They have been working on replicating the treatment for the past 20 years. The couple reveals that they have managed to create a serum to reverse the effects of the surgery. However, they only need one missing component to make the complete medicine. Unfortunately, that component is still with Cable and her team of scientists. It turns out that Cable has learned about this, so she's desperately looking for ways to destroy the smoke and their research. Upon hearing all of this, Tally is shocked and can hardly believe that her entire life has been a lie. She later destroys the necklace in a fire. Here, Tally tries to confess the reason she came here, but he cuts her off, saying all that matters is who she is now. They then start kissing, but we notice the burning necklace sending a signal to the city. The next morning, a loud noise wakes them up, and they discover that a large number of soldiers have arrived. However, these are not ordinary soldiers, they have superhuman strength and speed.
Get over here!
David and Tally manage to hide and watch on as everyone else is captured. David tries to rescue his friends, but Tally stops him, saying these soldiers are too strong. She is then shocked to see that her best friend Paris is among the soldiers. Soon after, Dr. Cable threatens David's parents to reveal their son's whereabouts. They expectedly refuse to let her know, so she orders Paris to eliminate AZ. Unfortunately, the brainwashed guy complies without hesitation and kills the man by snapping his neck. Upon witnessing this, David immediately reveals himself. A shocked Tally also confronts Cable and reminds her of her promise not to hurt anyone. Hearing this, the members of Smoke realize they have been double-crossed by Tally and feel betrayed. As all of this is happening, David's mother discreetly slips a vial of medicine into his pocket. Cable then informs Tally that she did a good job and that all of these people's procedures have been scheduled. But our enraged heroine rushes to a nearby hut and pours gasoline all over it before setting it on fire. This creates a commotion, giving her and David enough time to escape from the scene. Regardless, the remaining Smoke members are imprisoned, and David's parents' laboratory is also destroyed. In the evening, Tally approaches David, but he angrily points a knife at her throat, accusing her of betrayal. She apologizes for everything and claims that before coming here, she had no idea that the Smoke were good people fighting for a good cause. Tally explains that she can guide him to the building where his people are imprisoned. Although David is hesitant to trust her again, he has no other option but to follow her. In the following scene, the two arrive at the facility, where Tally meets some classmates who wish to join the Smoke. They are overjoyed to see David in person, and when Tally asks for their help in creating a distraction, they gladly agree. Shortly after, the teenagers write the words "The Smoke lives in the sky with fire." This causes a commotion and distracts the guards, allowing Tally and David to sneak inside the building. They soon come across a guard, but David subdues him and takes his ring. The duo then uses the ring to access a hidden chamber and finally manages to free their people. But unfortunately, Shay is not among them, as she has already been taken for the surgery. Following this, Tally, David, and Maddie rush to the transformation room to save Shay. But they're unfortunately too late, and her surgery has already been completed. Shay's appearance has been enhanced, and her behavior has changed dramatically. She proudly shows her new look to her friends and says that she's very happy. Not long after, Paris and Cable enter the room and force the three of them into the transformation machine. However, just as their surgery is about to begin, Croy appears and destroys the area with a flamethrower. As the others flee with Shay, Maddie retrieves a capsule from a sealed case. She now has the missing component she needs to complete the formula for the cure. Following this, the group makes a run for it, but they soon run into Paris on the rooftop. Tally tries to use their emotional bond to help him return to himself. It appears to be working briefly, and he places his hand on her neck, but David suddenly remembers that this was how the guy had killed her father and immediately attacks him. Despite his best efforts, he is outmatched by Paris. Witnessing this, Tally uses the hoverboard to attack her best friend, causing Paris to tumble over the edge of the roof. He calls her Squint before falling to his death. In the aftermath, the group manages to escape and reach the ruined city. Maddie reveals that she has found the missing component and the medicine is now complete. She hopes they can use it on Shay to bring her back, but the latter reveals that she doesn't want to be ugly again. The others urge her to use the medicine on Shay anyway, but Maddie refuses to force anyone to participate in this experiment. In the end, Tally decides to be the test subject and says she's willing to undergo the surgery. They can cure her afterward and get permission for the experiment. David fears they will lose her like they did Shay, but Tally claims that she knows who she is now and promises to leave him a sign that she's still in her right mind after the surgery. Just then, they notice the government aircraft approaching, so the Smoke members prepare to leave. As the plane approaches Tally, she exclaims, "I'm Tally Youngblood, make me pretty." In the final scene, we see Tally after her surgery, looking much more attractive than before. She tells the computer that she feels at peace and is satisfied with her new look. However, we notice her childhood scar, which means that she still remembers who she truly is. Thus, we reach the end of this film. Thanks for watching. You can like this video to support us. Don't forget to subscribe for more content. See you in the next video. Goodbye.